Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Not Minding My Own Business. I'm Russell Farbiars, your estate planning and elder law attorney, and I am joined by Terri Hill from Berks Business Education Coalition. Welcome, Terri.
Oh, I am so glad and honored to be here, Russ. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yes, and I should say welcome back because you were here last year talking about your business, Two Hills Consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that you started a new position with the Berks Business Education Coalition, and I thought, why not have you come back and give us a little update on what you're up to?
Well, thank you. I love that you're curious about it. And by the way, you're not the only person who is unfamiliar with the organization. My husband didn't even know what it was when I was offered.
I am somewhat familiar with it.
Okay.
I believe it was started with Saul Lausch a number of years ago, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's actually precedes Saul. So Saul was my predecessor, and Saul was there for 10 years. So he probably was the most visible. But the organization has been around for over 30. And it was started by 5 really, leaders in our community. If I say the names, you'll know them: Marlon Miller, Sam McCullough, Paul Rodell, Rolf Schmidt, and Fred Hafer. So the business leaders in the community, to give you the background, recognized that the workforce that was coming into play, they didn't feel they were prepared, and they really felt that there was a gap between what the work needs were and what the students were prepared to do when they were leaving school. And they wanted to work with education to prepare a workforce that's more ready to be successful after they graduate. So that was the impetus. And I will tell you from what I heard is that, the first things they had to tackle was the misconceptions that business had about education and what education had about business. So it was just like breaking down those barriers and those beliefs we have about the other person. And, everybody's pointing fingers as to who's responsible for what. And then once they could create a common language and a common goal, they were able to move forward. And what's so wonderful about this organization was, like I said, it's 30 years old, so it has a very long history here. But we were one of the leaders in the Commonwealth. The state of Pennsylvania did not introduce career-ready standards until fairly recently. I want to say like maybe 10, 12 years or something like that. So these gentlemen and business leaders really saw the need to have students experience what a work life is like and have access to that information prior to graduation. So I commend Berks County, leading edge. Who knew?
Who knew? We are on the cutting edge yet again here in Berks County.
I know. So
can you talk a little bit about what these career ready skills are? Because of course they change over time, but what are they now that you see, that you believe, or that BBEC believes students need to have when they graduate?
Well, it's interesting because the skill sets that different employers have, they vary. So somebody who's going into a manufacturing setting has a different set of skill sets in general than somebody who's going into healthcare. So they vary. But one of the things they found is that's very powerful. And it's not necessarily saying these are the skill sets that we need to train for, but to allow students to get exposure to what that career is like. So one of the initiatives we have is to get students into the workforce. So they have an opportunity in 9th grade to go visit businesses and to see what a business looks like, what the culture's like, what it entails to work in that industry, so that they can get a better understanding. And I know one of our big partners is East Penn Manufacturing, which is our largest employer. So you would expect that would be a big partner. But what they found is, students really have a misconception and don't understand what manufacturing is about. They think it's very dirty labor, and it really is cutting edge robotics and programming and a lot more higher level skill sets than what they thought. It's not. I think of Lucy, the I Love Lucy show with the belt going, right, with the candy belt. It's not that. So and I'm still plugging East Penn here, but one of the things I learned about East Penn when I assumed this role is they really, when they hire, they really try to hire for life. So their intention is to provide pathways for people for success. And they're not like, once you're hired, you don't just stay in a job, but you find a way to improve your career. So, that's wonderful to understand, and for students to know that that's available to them. So it's not necessarily that the businesses are saying these are exactly what you need to communicate. I think business teachers are understanding that there's pretty much soft skills, and I use soft as the common term that need to be addressed in the classroom. Students aren't they tend to use texting for communication or short terms, or so they're not used to writing long form. Their email is not as, we're very, in business, we use email a lot, and they're just not accustomed to that. They just don't necessarily know how to craft an email to get the information or communication. So it's communication issues, right? So those skill sets are being introduced more frequently into the classroom just to help students understand that. And when I was in a business class recently, and we were talking about one of the programs, we had some time at the end, and the teacher said, "Hey, we're talking about resumes and how to get interviews, how to do the interviews." And one of the what recommendations, and little things, right? It's spelling, making sure there's no spelling errors, because if you have spelling errors on your resume, they're going to be put in the grammar, little things like that that will, if you have it right, it will keep you there. If you don't get it right, it doesn't matter what you have, it's going to go to the side. So, just those really basic skill sets to help them get their foot in the door. And again, what our intention is with the organization is to allow them outside access. I mean, the classroom does things really well, but until you sit in the chair or you get to experience something in real life, you really have no idea what that world is like. So a quick story I'll tell you is a friend of mine who was telling me his daughter really wanted to be a doctor, and she went to Drexel and she studied. And when she started her clinical rotations, she realized she doesn't like to touch people. Okay. Oh, okay, red flag, right?
Well, then she could be a pathologist. Whoever
she's in research and development for Drexel. What's funny is she works with rats, so she's okay touching rats, but she's not okay with touching people. So but how can we get those experiences for our students earlier in life so that they have a better direction? And my goal is not to give them the pathway for their entire life. I really, I feel like life's a journey. What I've learned, you heard my story, it's been varied, and it's a lot of different things. And I've come to embrace those opportunities as what an advantage I have. I understand that you don't have to pick a career and stick with it forever, but you have the opportunity to explore. So what I want to help students understand is what is their next best step. And it could be college, it could be a trade school, it could be a military, it could be just going, and working immediately after school and going back to school later. It doesn't have to be whatever they decide. I want to take that pressure off. I don't want them to feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't make the right decision at 17, 18, I'm stuck in life. I want them to have the tools and the confidence that I'm going to do the next best thing for me. And I have the opportunity, and I'm going to use the word that we come to hate, pivot, right? So we can pivot.
But that's the thing, is that we don't like to use that word because it reminds us of that time in 2020 when we all had to pivot at the same time.
Yes.
But when you think about it, it is, I said this to a family member recently. Life has a way of making you humble, and it's the truth. And I think when you think about it, we're all pivoting all the time. And I love how you put it in your bio, though, that you spent your professional life testing out careers.
Yeah. It's like a car test, right? And what's so interesting is, the labels and identities that we assume in school tend to have a strong influence on what we select when we go forward. So, really trying to help students understand who they are better and
Mhm.
understand some of those labels. I tell the story that, I was told I was good in math. I mean, I did well in math, and I always thought I was a mathematician until I learned I wasn't. So, and I have a degree in math education, and it wasn't until I was 50 and I was a financial advisor for that brief period of time, and it wasn't working, that a good friend of mine who's a coach, and sometimes you can't see yourself, right? So he
Mhm.
basically says to me, you're not a mathematician, right? And I'm like, dang it, Bob, I have a degree on the wall that says I am. So, but that belief like really had a strong impact on how I chose where I was going in my life. And but I also learned then, hey, maybe that's not the right one, right? That's not the right career, or you're not really reading the information correctly. You're not really getting the feedback right. So what I found is the mathematics that call to me are ones that are connecting. I like connecting things. I like finding ways to bridge gaps. I love to connect people. So mathematics has some opportunities for that. So that's why I was good in it. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that makes sense. So how does, following up on the theme, how does the Berks Business Education Coalition connect business and students?
So there's a couple of ways that we do it currently. So the first ways that we started it was, like I mentioned a little bit, was trying to get the students out in the field. So the original initiatives were, let's get ninth graders out on college campuses so that they can see if that's something that they're comfortable with and that's a pathway that they want to go. So we did an initiative where they got that, there's businesses. So at the same time in that year, they had felt it was really important for them to understand what's available in the workforce. So that's like where East Penn came in, Penske, some of the, Tower Health, St. Joe's, those larger employers opened up their doors and offered freshmen again to come in and see what the variety of roles and career opportunities are, so you can get a better idea as to what their potential pathways are. Later on, now as they start to fine tune their direction. Am I going to college? Where am I going? And what do I think I might want to go to? Now, when they become 11th and 12th graders, the other thing that we do is we offer internships, and we work with Career Ready Berks, which is headed up by the Berks County IU. And, I help them identify business partners. So they already have an extensive list. They have about 180 local businesses, but the majority of them, let's be honest, are pretty large employers. So you have, again, your East Penn, your Penske, those larger employers that are willing to take internships so that the students can get a feel for what that industry is like. My role is to fill the gaps. So where is there an interest or a student that really wants an experience and we don't have a partner right now? How can I help identify a partner? Where are those? And when I was working in the Emerging Entrepreneurs Academy program, which is also designed to help students, so it all goes together, it all fits
It does
together
all go
somehow,
together.
right? That program specifically worked with small business owners because that's what who we were looking to address. And those the times that the students had working and shadowing somebody who did such a variety of different tasks, and that intimate experience really gave them a lot of insight as to who they are and what they want to do. So I'm trying to expand what we're doing now and make it more broader as opposed to narrow. We've discussed the possibility of bringing panels of professionals into the classrooms, not even classrooms, but into an assembly type of environment. So students can sit in as they're exploring and they can hear from people in different walks of life, and they can understand what does it take to get to that career? What's a day like in that career? Where do you go from there? What kind of, obviously, ROI, depending on, how much you invested in education, how much your return. And, and I think I want our students to understand that it's a lifelong learning. Even though you say you're out of the classroom, you're really never out of the classroom, right?
No, and that's the thing I actually tell my kids, which were too young for the VBEC programs at this point, or BBEC programs, but I tell them, that I learn new things every day because we all do, and it makes sense that you want to instill that lifelong learning bug in all of these kids.
Well, and what they find is in everybody, let's be honest, if it's something that you're interested in doing, you will want to learn more. So it's really just trying to help them fine tune where their interest lies. I was just out at what used to be the Science Research Institute. It's now rebranded as a total experience learning center. I think it is total experiential learning. I'm sorry if I boogered up the name, but it's out at Albright. Adele Shade runs it, phenomenal educator. And when she was in the classroom, she really helped students tap into their curiosity. And she used that to teach, the lessons that we're supposed to learn, right? By following their curiosity. And what she heard from a lot of students is, well, I'm not good at science yet. If you hear what they're curious about, like one is they found a correlation between some I'm going to say gases that were used in one of the wars, I think it was Gulf Wars, and MS. The veterans who've come back, there's a link between that and MS. They're clipping nails, and they're looking at them under a microscope, but that person will tell you that they're not a scientist. I don't like science, yet they're doing that work, right? So it's knowing that we're capable of doing what we want to do, and we don't need those other things holding us back. It's if we're curious, we're going to do it. We're going to follow it, right? So
Uh,
it's fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you only work with the high school age students, or do you do anything with middle school or even elementary school?
There are some programs that we support that are that. I think the school districts right now are doing a really great job at creating career readiness along the way, right? So even pre-K has a little bit in there. So and plus we can go back to pre-K and early learning in that we know as well. There's a lot of studies that if you're well read, if you have a good start, you're going to have a better finish. So we also have a focus on there. It's not, I have to say, it's not my primary focus, but it's an important part. It's a piece of it. But majority of the quote unquote programs that I run tend to be further on, where it's a little more career specific directive with businesses, but not saying that there's relevance along the way. It's just how do they fit it in. And my desire is to continue an open dialogue between businesses and education to continue being innovative and creative and developing new solutions, partnerships. So I want to be the innovation. This is me. I want to be the innovation hub. I want to be the one, and the incubator and creating all of these cool ideas. And then, we'll test it. And if it works, we'll pass it on to somebody else to implement so that we don't get necessarily stuck in the implementation, but we are, the place where all the ideas come out. I think that would be a lot of fun. That's me. That's what I like.
That would be a lot of fun. So what is brewing in the Innovation Hub these days?
Well, we are, I'm here 1 month, Russ. So let's talk about it. So a lot of the brewing will come forward. So when I meet with my board, which is coming up next month or this month, we are going to make a concerted effort to work together to first of all, identify what we're trying to accomplish and evaluating our current programs, because we don't want to dismantle if we don't have to. So
Right.
are there ways to retain, maybe tweak and keep what we have, or has our vision and purpose evolved into another segment, and what does that look like? So it's kind of taking stock of where we are and what we have, and seeing what we can use and what we need to replace. So that's where we're in. But there's minor things, like which grade levels are the right ones to go to a higher learning? Do we want to create more customization? Right now, they're randomly, they are go to visit colleges on a random basis. It's not, Russ, if you told me you wanted to go to Albright, that would not necessarily translate into your visit. You would go to whatever school they put you on. So, how can we create more customization to meet the needs of the students? So we're looking at all those ways. And also I want to allow the school districts to customize the program. So maybe it's not a blanket that it's all this grade level has this program. Maybe it's in one school, it fits better for a junior high, maybe another school, it fits better in a high school, and allow them to, do an a la carte too. But we want to be there to support them so that we have it available, but we don't necessarily have to dictate how it's used.
Right. You can provide the program, but they can customize when and where it gets delivered.
That's at least something recent that came up just because of the different feedback I've been getting from educators and actually the providers on the other side, that maybe there's ways to make it more flexible than what it is right now.
Okay. Now you mentioned you work a lot with some of the larger businesses.
Mhm.
Do you work with smaller businesses, and how does that work out?
So we're still working on that, Russ. So that's something that I definitely want to expand. You think about even, your own profession, attorneys. I, are there opportunities for somebody to come into a law office and, have that internship experience? And is there already something developed, or is that something new that we would be working on? So, and a small law office is going to give you a wider breadth probably of what law is. And if you go into a specific, like, something large where there's, different focus depending on where you are, where you're just really deep into one area. So how can we expand and give students, an idea of what it is to be a lawyer? I think of, friends of mine who claim they want to be a lawyer, but yet they don't want to write, or, maybe that's not part of their thing. And, writing's important. But
A
maybe
big
they like
part
to
of it.
argue. So like, what is the area that they want to be in? So helping them understand that.
Well, I have to tell you, I really hate the thought that, well, you like to argue, therefore you should be a lawyer.
Yeah.
I hate to argue. You know, that is, you know, that is not, a prerequisite to being a lawyer. If you're arguing, a lot of times that's because you haven't been successful in resolving a situation previously. But it's interesting because you're right. A smaller business is going to give you, the intern's going to get to do more meaningful
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
are these are high school students? Are they getting credit, uh, school credit for these internships? Are they getting paid? What's the setup?
It's really interesting. A lot. I mean, the internship programs are done through the school. So most schools have either somebody who's dedicated to internships, so they have an internship coordinator or their guidance
Right.
counselor, or business teachers are the ones that kind of provide those opportunities. And that's actually why I think the BBEC is so important, and Career Ready Works, because we can help them. They don't have to go out and search for the match, right? We're going to be the matchmakers to help them give those opportunities to students. My understanding, and again, I'm relatively new, so I'm going to do the caveat that I may be incorrect, is that majority of these are unpaid internships. They're experiencing, they're shadowing, they're mentoring, but there is a credit. They're taking time away from school, so there is a credit that is associated with it. I do know with our own program that we ran, the Emerging Entrepreneurs Academy, it was unpaid internship experience, but the schools did give credits for those hours that they spent. So that was it. And a lot of the people who took advantage of the internships got hired. So we don't require it small, especially if you're looking at small businesses. Small businesses don't have necessarily the capacity to hire somebody, but they might like really sharing and be a great resource, and we don't want to exclude them from it. So I'd
Right.
like to do that. There are some schools who may have an underserved community, and there may be ways for them to create a stipend situation depending on what they're doing, but that's at the school's discretion. It's not something that we mandate or require.
Okay. And your programs, do they run year round, or just during the school year?
So the student support programs are primarily during the school year. There is a program called Inside Berks Business, capital BB, and that is designed to bring teachers into business. So it's a short-term blitz. It's a 3-day blitz where they go into businesses to see what it's like in that business, with the idea that they're going to take applications into the classroom, right? So they're going to see what it's like, because when you're in a classroom and you're teaching from the book and you're kind of following that around, you may be lost in some of the ways, like the relevance of what you're teaching. There may not
Right.
have real life applications, but by them getting out and seeing what different businesses are out there, what those businesses are doing, gives them an opportunity to bring those stories into the classroom and share them with their other department heads and the people in teaching. So that's been around for a few years. Currently, we have about 35 teachers that take advantage of the program. And part of it is because the school districts do pay them to go. So there is, funding that's required by the schools in order to allow the teachers to go. That is primarily the summer for us, is that program. The rest of it is fall and spring, and it's all about getting students out. So out of the classroom.
And how can businesses support the work that you're doing?
Well, there's a lot of ways. So, obviously, like I said, we're looking at potentially bringing panels together where they go into the schools. So that could be a way. So anybody who's interested in sharing their story and their message, I find it really wonderful when students can see themselves in somebody and say, oh my gosh, that looks like me, that sounds like me, I can do something, right? That's the power of it, is sharing those stories and those connections. So if somebody's interested in sharing their story, we can do that. We're also looking at possibly creating a library too for teachers to go, or kids to access, so they can hear stories individually as they want to. So we're talking about a lot of great ideas. How soon they'll be implemented is up in the air, but I think there's so much opportunity and so many different ways that we can bring the knowledge that we have from the workforce we currently have out there, and the enthusiasm to help students and give them a leg up so that they can be successful. I think there's a wonderful marriage out there, and I want to be the person who performs the ceremony. I want to be there, and
you're the officiant.
I want to be the officiant. I want to bring them together. I want to be the matchmaker. And so I would encourage any business who says, or even if somebody says, I remember the pain in high school, and I know, look where I've gotten. I wish I could talk someone down and say, relieve that stress. It's all going to be okay. Let me help you, and we can figure out a way that would work.
Well, and from business owner perspective, business owners may not like to realize this, but they don't know the younger markets. They don't know what the younger people know. And there's a lot of technology that as older people we might not necessarily know about. I don't know about you, I'm not particularly familiar with things like Snapchat or whatnot, but they can really bring a breath of fresh air and really try to modernize some businesses, and help them embrace technology as well.
Well, not even technology. It's our up and coming workforce, right? So,
right.
When you get to know them, you'll know what their priorities are. I mean, a lot of times they want to know that their work is relevant. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They're not just satisfied with the paycheck. I mean, they want a paycheck. A lot of them are pretty driven by a paycheck, but they have a lot more. They want to understand what their role is, and so I feel it's a two-way street. So as well as business can help them understand, they can help businesses understand what the workforce of the future looks like, what they're looking for, and how to make the business attractive to younger employees, right? So it's how can they all work together to create this really dynamic, healthy community here. So that's what we're looking for.
Well, and they can also help businesses understand their new customers.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Because the customers that we have today are not the customers we're going to have tomorrow. Yes,
you're right. And it's interesting. We go back to, you were talking about the social media. A few of the students we had going through the academy this past summer, what the small business owner did was leverage them for social media, like TikTok. Like, oh, we don't know about TikTok. Like, how do you use it? So a lot of those, and Instagram. So how do you use those? And that's what they use the students for, because they are so naturally talented in that. And the students just dismiss it as it's not a skill, but as a business owner, it's like, yes, it is. It takes a lot of time and attention, and I just don't know what to do with it. They're so naturally, they just do it naturally. leverage them. And we found business owners that did that took advantage of their expertise
Mhm.
and allowed it into the workplace to set them up, so they
Yeah,
could move forward with that, with a lot of social media. So it was a really nice win-win for a lot of people.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Terry. If anyone is listening and wants to get in touch with you or with the Berks Business Education Coalition, what's the best way to do that?
Right now, I still don't have an email, which we're working on, but there's been a hiccup with, it doesn't matter. There's a hiccup. So right now, the best way to reach me is actually my Two Hills
Okay.
email address currently. So it's Terri, Terri at Two Hills, TWOHILLS.consulting. That I will always get that even when I have the BBEC up. So, I mean, that's the best way to reach me. But just let me know if the BBEC is something that you're interested in, and we can have a conversation. I'm always open to conversations about how we can collaborate. Collaboration's key. And then also my phone number is 484-332-8014. And that number won't change. The email may.
Well, thank you so much, Terry, for being here for a second time here on Not Minding My Own Business.
I hopefully, if I'm back a third, it's not because I changed. It's just because I added something within this frame. So
I'm sure I've always been impressed with what you've done. So I'm sure that we will have you back again because you've done something else impressive.
oh, Russ, thank you.
Yeah,
Same to you. Yeah, it's amazing how we all grow. So it's fun
yeah,
watching each other grow, right?
absolutely. Well, thank you.